Tonya, welcome to Beyond the Inbox. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this chat.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the world of health and beauty?
Oh, wow. I'm one of those roller coaster rides. I went to undergrad. I got my undergrad in political science because I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Decided I didn't want to be a lawyer, went to grad school and got my master's of arts thinking I'd be maybe a museum curator and ended up opening a construction company and did that for 20 years before I navigated into this beautiful world of beauty.
I have so many follow up questions. I think I'll come back to the political science a little later on, but can you tell us a little bit about Unsun Cosmetics? What was the inspiration and how did you get started with the brand?
I never wore sunscreen. Active girl, brownie Girl Scouts cadet, 8 brothers, so you can imagine our outdoor activities. But one day I went to the dermatologist because I noticed I was getting these little black moles on my face that I thought were genetic because literally every older person in my family has them. And so my words to her were, "I know that I'm gonna get these because 'cause they're genetic, but they're coming too soon. Is there a way that we could slow them down?" And she told me that they were not genetic, but that they were a result of sun damage, and I was floored because always believed that Black people didn't have an issue with sun damage or skin cancer. That wasn't on our radar. So I became obsessed with sunscreen because now I realize that I don't have to grow older and have this face full of moles. And the first thing I realized was that the chemical sunscreens irritated my eyes and I hated the smell. And because I was on a learning curve, it took me a while to discover mineral. But when I did, it didn't burn my eyes. However, it left this ghostly white residue that I hated. And so I just dealt with it because it was the easier for me to deal with until I moved back home to Los Angeles in 2013 and had some sunscreen made literally just for me in my medicine cabinet. But the chemist and I worked up such a beautiful formulation that I decided, maybe I can build a brand around this. And a big part of that would be educating people of color that, yes, we do need sunscreen.
I want to dig into the educational aspect of the business because that's what fascinates me most. How did you start educating your future customers about the importance of using sunscreen and everything that you're doing today?
Well, we were really lucky to get very early press. And Katonya, launched the sunscreen brand for Black people. Black people need sunscreen. But of course, I do a lot of podcasts. I used to sit on a lot of panels before COVID that are just starting to pick back up again. And of course, in our social, and we partner with the Melanoma Research Foundation to run campaigns. So we really just try to get out there and be informative in a fun way, but also a way that kind of sticks.
Can you tell me about getting that first customer and what that was like?
Well, my first customer was one of my dear friends, so we'll scratch that one off. But I would say that when the orders started coming in, I was really excited. But my first retail partnership was really when things solidified for me.
And how far along in your journey was that?
Oh, about a year and a half, actually. It was pretty quick. We were lucky.
So you founded the brand in 2016, and can you speak on how the brand has evolved since its launch?
Yes. So one clear way is that when we launched with one SKU, and that was the medium deep sunscreen for my skin tone. And then we continued to add about a SKU and a half every year. To today, 6 years later, we have 11 SKUs across 2 lines, and we're launching a new SKU at the end of this year.
Has your vision changed from when you first started the brand to the work that you're doing now?
It has not. We have been fully committed to using clean mineral-based sunscreens, and that's a challenge because people are accustomed to the ease of chemical actives, but we just really feel and know that mineral actives are better, and so my vision has definitely remained the same.
Can you speak to the challenges of marketing a sunscreen brand to people of color and what strategies have worked well for Unsun Cosmetics?
The only thing that I could think that work that really works well is getting people of color to understand the difference between a mineral sunscreen and a chemical sunscreen. And w- I just really, I tell my team all the time, I just really want to be authentic. I don't want to preach to anyone. I just want people to understand that they need to wear sunscreen. And our position is even if you don't wear our sunscreen, it's so important that we understand that we really do need to wear sunscreen. And not just for the vanity aspects that got me on board, like moles or hyperpigmentation, but while Black and brown people don't get skin cancer as often as our white counterparts, our mortality rates are higher. So we really do need to be aware that the sun does not discriminate. So we just really try to get that message out in a fun yet informative way.
What are some of the ways that you're educating your customers? Are you doing this via email or social media or another channel, or is it a combination of all of the above?
Oh, it's definitely a combination. We do emails, we do SMS text messages, we do social media. We have a trailer that we're out and about in the communities, and it's so cute. It's a vintage trailer that we did last year. And we just really plan on getting out and doing more guerrilla marketing and just making everyone aware as we possibly can.
I wanted to ask you about the guerrilla marketing approach. You and I talked about that in our pre interview, and I wanted to ask you if you could speak on those efforts and how they've contributed to brand awareness and customer acquisition.
I think that being a part of communities develops relationships and awareness, and not just kind of standing back and outside of the communities from a distance trying to connect. I think getting in there, and obviously you can't connect with everyone, but if you leave an impression on enough people, word spreads and the brand is recognized and our mission is understood and recognized, and ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. We're just boots on the ground and we're out every week this summer with our trailer at different locations and just giving out samples and just engaging with people. And so that's a big part of what we want to do. We want to be known as a friend, like someone that you can connect with and relate to.
I speak to a lot of e-commerce founders and they talk about the importance of meeting your customers and even watching their real-time reactions when they are interacting with your products. I wanted to ask you, is it a challenge for you as the company grows? There is a risk of having that detachment from customers, or are you very much hands-on with a lot of customers in your day-to-day?
I'm very much hands-on. I go to a lot of the events myself. When I meet with people, I love engaging with people. I respond to a lot of the emails that we get on our website. I feel like we're a small brand. We're not a huge, big corporate entity. So it's important for us, and it's still easy for us to continue to communicate directly. I think it's so important. People want to know who the founder is, especially when it's a small brand, and I'm happy to engage.
Are there any surprising findings that come to mind when you think about conversations that you've had with customers?
Unfortunately, not surprising. I hear all the time that, I don't need sunscreen. I have melanin, or I'm hardly ever out in the sun. And I'm thinking, we drive in our cars every day to work. We go to the grocery store. We think that we don't have exposure. We sit by our windows, but we do. We have fluorescent lights in our ceilings. We do have exposure to the kind of lights that can give us sun damage. So,
I want
unfortunately.
to I want to circle back to something you said earlier, mineral versus chemical. Can you talk about the differences? Because it might be helpful for our audience and certainly for myself as well to know the difference between the two.
Yeah. So a mineral sunscreen, which is going to be your zinc and your titanium, are naturally derived from the earth. So they're minerals. So they're like a powdery white substance. Whereas chemical actives are man made actives. And the problem with the chemical actives, there have been a lot of research that they're found in the bloodstream or in breast milk. Places like Puerto Rico and certain parts of Hawaii and Australia and different places around the world have banned sunscreens with many of the chemical actives because they're bleaching the coral reefs. So my position is that there's not enough information. 3 years ago, the FDA ruled that they only recognize the two mineral as safe, and all of the chemical actives are currently under review. So they're waiting to collect data from these companies. But if you think that's over 75% of the sunscreens on the shelves are chemical, you can imagine the lobbying strength, right? And so I am interested to know if something is safe, then I'll be happy to use it. But until that I get information that any of those chemical actives are safe, which right now they're not deemed safe by the FDA, but they are under investigation. I don't know if that's the right word. But so those are the difference. A chemical active has to be absorbed into your skin to work. Mineral sunscreen is not absorbed. It's literally sits on your skin like a shield. And those are the two differences. So when you put on a mineral sunscreen, you can go out immediately. When you put on a chemical sunscreen, you have to wait 20 to 30 minutes for it to absorb because that's the way that it works before you are exposed to the sun. So those are two of the main differences between chemical and mineral actives.
It's fascinating, and I'm sat here wondering as I'm listening to this, when it comes to the messaging for the brand and the way you are communicating the importance of what you're doing, are you coming at it from a fear-based angle? Are you coming at it from a different type of angle where you're trying to touch on a certain emotion in the reader? Because I imagine when you talk about statistics, it can be very overwhelming for the listener. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, we don't really talk about statistics. People have a short attention span, and like I said to you, one thing I always say is I really don't care what kind of sunscreen you wear, just wear sunscreen. But I do believe, and research does show that mineral sunscreen actives are better for us and better for the environment. I don't typically go into long, especially in social, about why and this danger and that danger, but I do speak to the bullet points. You know, the coral reefs, the absorption into the skin, and the minerals sitting on your face as a shield. Those are my 3 points, and I think that it's enough to give you some basis of doing your own research because ultimately we're responsible for our own self-care. So I don't want to go into this huge thing about the differences between the two.
I'm on the website now and I'm browsing around and I'm on one of the product pages. Are you offering subscriptions on these products or are they one-time purchases?
They're one-time purchases, and that is something that we're planning on doing is offering subscriptions. Unfortunately, people believe that sunscreen is just for the summer. And so part of our big messaging is that, this thin cloudy vapor has no chance of standing up to the beautiful yet powerful rays of the sun. So we need to set up a subscription service, and we've been talking to a few, but that's the only thing is people tend to slow down the use of of sunscreen in the winter time. So that's why I was a little concerned about subscription services, but we are going to try and see how it works.
What kind of campaigns are you running in non-summer months, keeping in mind what you just said? I can imagine you have to come up with some creative ideas, especially when you're running email campaigns to promote something like this.
Yeah, our big hashtag for non-summer months is called It's Not Summer Screen. It's sunscreen. So, we just really push it. We use outdoor sports, skiing, different outdoor activities to just show that sunscreen is still necessary. It may be really cold, but the sun is still present. And so we continuously try to find fun ways of getting the imagery to match what's going on outside and while always expressing the importance of continued use of sunscreen.
How are you using email? I imagine you have some workflows running in the background. Are you sending weekly email campaigns or seasonal campaigns? What does that look like?
Yeah, we try to send out two emails a month. I don't like to overwhelm anyone with a bunch of emails in their inbox, and we send out about 3 text messages a month.
And how is SMS working for you? Because that can be very hit and miss for different businesses.
It could be, but I think that the gains are better than the losses, especially if you just don't bombard people with a whole bunch of information. You offer them something, be it a discount or a motivational word for their day or just something of value. So I think it could be good though. I really do think that it makes a difference.
Yeah, it really does seem like it works very well for some businesses and not others. But I think, like anything, you have to test it for yourself and see what works for you.
Definitely, definitely. And you can test it different ways.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about community. I had this in my notes as well, and it's something I like to ask everyone on the show. What is community? What does it mean for you? And how do you leverage it in your business?
Community for me, my immediate community is the Black community, and just really trying to get them to understand that I created the sunscreen as a Black woman who needed a viable alternative. But from a big wider perspective, our community is whoever you choose to be in your community. It's like your family. I'm a firm believer that we choose our family. We have our given family, but my best friend is like my sister, and that's my chosen family. So your community should be a reflection of who you are and who you choose to be in that community.
I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you a little bit more about your role. I'm curious, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced as a founder and how have you overcome them?
The biggest challenge I faced and facing is funding. Funding for Black owned is woman a Black woman is so less likely to get funding than a white woman and most certainly a white man. And it's been a real struggle for us. And so I've been self-funded since the beginning, and it's been challenging. Initially, we were told things like, "Oh, once you pass $1 million in sales, then we'd be interested." And then you get to that point and they're, "Oh, it's too early for us. We're more So for us, funding has been a huge challenge because it's not allowed us to scale in the way that I know that we can with the proper funding. So business is tough. It's tough without proper funding. You get to a certain point, and we've been fortunate that I've been able to manage in the way that I have, but many people can't. And I wish there was more parity in the funding world, but we'll see how that goes.
I did want to ask you as well, how many are on the team right now and what is everyone responsible for?
We have 5 on the team, so I have myself, obviously, I have a logistics manager, I have my assistant. My logistics manager does so much. I mean, he handles everything as it relates to EDI and shipping and manages that whole process, the warehousing. My assistant slash office assistant manages a little bit of everything. We're a small company. Everyone has to be able to wear multiple hats. My marketing assistant handles, a lot of the marketing campaigns and social, and then we have a social media assistant that just handles posts and doing the little stuff that my marketing person doesn't do. And then I have a graphic artist that comes in and really handles all of making sure that we're staying on brand with our fonts and our colors and that sort of thing. And then I have kind of an office manager. Yeah, like I said, we all wear different hats, but just making sure that our inventory is where it is when things are getting to a certain point. This has to be ordered, or just kind of handling across the board all issues, customer service issues, what have you. So we just really all try to rally together and make it work. We're a small but powerful team.
What gets you out of bed in the morning? What are you most excited about when you think about the business right now?
Just growth, just being really scrappy. We're being really scrappy this year. Like, uh-oh, are you there? Oh, okay. My screen just went dead. We're being really scrappy this year with this guerrilla marketing. This is our first year getting out weekly, and we're just running our first campaign, our billboard campaign that will align with our social campaign starting in a week and a half. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot on the plate, a lot of moving pieces that that, yeah, just require my attention and my excitement.
Can you speak more on the billboards? That sounds very exciting.
Yeah, so we have a campaign, it's called "Don't Get Ghosted by Your Sunscreen." I don't know if you've heard of the term all the kids say when a guy or a girl no longer calls them or just disappears, it's like, "Oh, they ghosted me." So we're just doing a play on the word about ghosted, but the white cast left behind the sunscreen. So we have, some billboards going up, and we have some fun socials going up, and so we're gonna do some fun things with it.
And what is the goal with this particular campaign?
It's all about brand awareness at this point. It's all about brand awareness because we don't have the $1 million to spend on marketing and Google ads and social ads. We have to find more creative ways of brand awareness.
Well, I hope that goes well for you. And we're soon coming to the end of our time here, Katonya. I wanted to ask you, what does the future look like for Unsun Cosmetics, and what new products or initiatives do you have in the works?
Yeah, we're continuing to grow. We are launching our first SPF 50 at the end of this year. And it was challenging because mineral is so white. So the higher the SPF, the more of the whiteness you have to deal with. But we worked on this formula for 3.5 years and we finally have it. It's a beautiful formulation with just zinc oxide. So we're excited to be launching that. And we're just continuing to grow the business, focusing on different aspects of the business to help them grow, like our Amazon business and, of course, our e-commerce business, as well as succeeding with our existing retailers. So we're just focusing on growth, growth, growth.
It's wonderful to hear. Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time to join us today, Katonya. Where can our listeners go to learn more about you and, more importantly, Unsun Cosmetics?
www.unsuncosmetics.com. Same on Instagram and Facebook.
Perfect. Well, we'll put all those links in the show notes. And I want to thank you again, Katonya, and all the best in the future with Unsun Cosmetics.
Thank you so much for having me.